Hi class, this is Miss Miller. It looks like you've reached the right place. Today is our second video lecture. This is going to be a brief lecture. It's really just a post discussion on your discussion that you held in the discussion board, as well as your notes that you took on the 3 pages from the Pearl, which started on page 76 and ended on page 77. And that's when we were in class and we discussed Juana's deception, so the signs or evidence of her deception, along with any evidence of Kinos Anger. So we wanted to start drawing the evidence from the text to support our answer. And the question that we posed to everyone is, how did Steinbeck justify Kinos' violence towards his wife, Juana? So, and you when you do this, you can limit your response to the reading, or you can also take it outside of just the short excerpt and use the context of the text itself. So I want to give you a moment to go ahead and pull those 2 pages out. Or 3 pages, excuse me, the one starting with chapter 5. And your job today is to go ahead and add in the notes that I give you. And I also want to make sure that you have the items that I have highlighted. So if you don't, I would like you to do that. And so that when you come to class tomorrow, you have the notes from this lecture and also some of the evidence that we captured in our talk today. The Common Core standard that we're covering, the most important one is Reading Literature 8.1, which is really just gathering evidence to support our ideas. So I want you to just think about that. And then Reading for Literature 8.2, which is sort of answering this question and summarizing the ideas, the major ideas in the text. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to take a look at chapter 5. The first paragraph on chapter 5, you probably want to get your handout out and number the lines 1 through 8. We're looking at the late moon arose all the way till she was gone. And right here in this chapter, we're really observing Juana's deception. And so even though at this point it's from the point of view of Kino, we do get a sense of how she is deceiving him. And not necessarily in a negative way. I do want you to make note that in this section of the text, Steinbeck uses both visual and kinesthetic imagery to illustrate her deception. And so he uses words like darkness. Of course, you can have this visual picture of just how dark it is. But we have the late moon arose before the rooster crowed. And you could add in auditory imagery because you can almost picture or hear a rooster crowing. And Kino opened his eyes in the darkness, and here's the kinesthetic imagery. So he sensed a movement near him, but he didn't move. So we have to remember it's very early in the text, excuse me, not in the text, but in this part of the morning. And we know that there have been several attempts on his life because he possesses this pearl. So he is really, his senses are heightened. And he's certainly more alert than he has ever been. And even laying next to his wife, he has to be cautious. But we never would assume that that he would suspect her of anything. And initially it isn't really clear what she's up to. We just know that she is being what we believe to be deceitful. Did she want the pearl for herself? I mean, it's not really that transparent whether that's the case. But we see, you should highlight, he sensed a movement near him but did not move. Then in line 3, we see a light of the moon that crept through the holes. You can almost picture this. And the word choice that Steinbeck uses, crept, that is also a form of deception. And remember, deception is if you try to trick someone. You're trying to conceal something or keep something from someone. So in this case, Juana is trying to keep from Kino her desire to leave the residence at this moment. And so anyways, then we see in line 4 that she gets up silently from beside him. And it's not the silent type where you don't want to wake him because you don't want to disrupt his sleep. It's the silently, I got to get up and get out of here. And her move, she carefully did work, light as sound when she moved, like a shadow, that simile. Glided, she paused, she was black, and she was gone. This deception of Kino. Now we look at the second paragraph, and I would number the lines 9 through 17, and it begins with "and rage." Again, Steinbeck uses some strong imagery to sort of depict this betrayal, as well as now it transitions to Kinos Anger. And so he tells us of the rage as he gets up there. Again, Steinbeck uses strong imagery to communicate this. And we see he rolled up his feet, and rage surged in Kino and followed her as silently as she had gone. And he could hear her quick footsteps toward the shore. Of course, the quick footsteps would indicate her deception, and silently as she had gone is her deception, even though that describes how he leaves. But then we take a look at line number 11, where he says, "and the brain was red with anger." This is used to describe Kino. And so this is really strong visual imagery. You can almost picture this man with a red head. And so in this case, we know he's hot. He is burning. He's fuming. You don't want to mess with him. He says his brain was red with anger. But here she is. She burst clear out of the brush line and stumbled over the little boulders toward the water. And then she heard him coming, and she broke into a run. So, before here she's afraid, and not necessarily afraid for her life. She's just like, I got to get out of here because I've got to get rid of. We see here where it says her arm was up to throw. She wants to, eliminate this pearl. When he leaped, so, Steinbeck could have used another word, but he chose leaped, right, at her. That's a strong diction. I would circle the word leaped at her, and caught her arms and wrenched. Now, wrenched is a very strong word, and that's why I have the arrow there. It's where you pull something violently. So he's wrenched the pearl from her. So this again illustrates his anger. He struck her in the face. So right after that, he immediately proceeds to assault her. He struck her in the face with his clenched fists, and she fell among the boulders. And he kicked her in the side. So if it wasn't enough for him to punch her, he kicks her. And this is just terrible. So here it is. This woman has been assaulted, and so how do we justify this? And how does Steinbeck justify it? And that's the question that we really want to discover here. So now we are looking at the next few lines, and this is lines 18 through 20, I believe 3. And so we see some more expression of Kino and how angry he is. It says his teeth were barred, like his teeth are showing. And if you've ever been angry, that means his mouth is pulled all the way out and his teeth are showing. He is angry. Right? And this is interesting. He hissed at her like a snake. So if it wasn't enough for him to punch her and then to kick her, now he's holding his mouth. I wish you could see my face right now as I'm trying to do the same thing with my teeth. And he hissed at her like a snake. So now he's being compared to an animal. And I'm wondering if this is Steinbeck's way of justifying his behavior, because if you're an animal, then you have no control. You're instinctual. You just do whatever. And so maybe now he's in anger. I know many of you refer to Kino has been transformed in some type of monster. And I think you're right. He is this uncontrollable animal, and perhaps that's why its behavior is justified, because they can blame it on the pearl. He wasn't like this necessarily before, and some of you argue that he was, and that's quite possible. But it says he hissed like a snake. Then we go on to see, of course, that she's frightened, and she's she's sort of resigned herself to the fact that she's going to die. And then we look at line 20 and it says there was murder in him. This man goes from rage. Now she could feel the murder in him. And I would argue that that's another form of imagery. It's almost like a feeling that you have. And it was all right. She was okay. She had accepted it. How does Steinbeck justify this? Because now Steinbeck is even comparing Juana to being an animal. Her eyes were unfrightened like a sheep before the butcher. And is that how it makes it okay? And then this is the part that's like hot and cold. It says, and then in line 21, the rage left him. Like he's demon possessed. It's not him. The rage left, like this rage just came from out of nowhere and came in him, and then now it's gone. And so it's taking away all responsibility from him. He's been absolved of all responsibility here. And then it says, left him in a sick disgust, as if it just made him sick. No, that's not right. Right? And so this is where it leaves us here in the text. So, if we think about the previous lines, we know that the fact that there was murder in him, but somehow he spared Juana's life, explains why later he's referred to as his half-god. But if we look now at this paragraph where it has lines 23 to 26, we see that, Steinbeck shows that Kino is now reacting to a real threat. He heard the rush, that's the threat, got his knife out and lunged. There is anger, and now it's almost like misdirected anger. Perhaps we see now why he reacted to his wife the way he did, because now he's trying to defend his life because he's possessing this pearl, and he's got so much pride. But he heard the rush, which is someone coming to attack him, and he had to stab someone. So he turns it off, and he turns it off, and so that explains why the rage may have left him at one point in the previous paragraph, because he's got to turn it off and on. He doesn't even know perhaps how to do that, and perhaps that's why Steinbeck justifies this behavior. So you almost feel sorry for him. I mean, but he manages to disassociate this rage from Kino himself, and so this rage isn't really him, it's a result of the pearl, and that explains why he goes and may have beat his wife up in one instance and then goes off to kill this man who's attacking him. So we look at lines 27 through 41, and this sort of ends it. We see more. He got his. 27 through 41. We see the line. Kino would drive his strength against a mountain and plunge his strength against the sea. Half insane, her bruised face, and stinging salt water, and all of this sort of explains again his. So we had a chance to delineate those paragraphs where the text sort of addresses Kino's violence towards his wife, and we see that Steinbeck finds ways to sort of justify this behavior, and he does this by saying that it's not him, it's the pearl. It's not his fault. The rage just comes in him, and then it's gone, and then he's sick with disgust, right? And even his wife lets him off the hook. Steinbeck lets him off the hook, but we're not letting him off the hook. That's not right, and we don't necessarily agree with it, but that's what happened. So that's it for our discussion on those few pages. I hope you got to see what a close read is like. Make sure you take your notes if you have to go back, and just be prepared to share what you have tomorrow. Thank you.